My name is Eva Omondi. I'm a registered general nurse who's practiced in different areas of nursing, currently working in an NHS trust in Bedfordshire. I trained in my country, Kenya. Kenya is one of the Eastern African countries. It's a Commonwealth country. When I arrived in the UK, having come with my children, my 4 children, like full family, and we had no other family members here, it was quite difficult. Everything changed. Because then childcare was a problem. Houses were quite small. So we had to adapt to the system as well. And the culture was different. That hit me differently as well. The food, we had to get used to their food. We had the different ways of making our food back at home. But eventually we got there because we learned where we can buy the foods that, we relate to with the time. And then the other good thing is that we found a church. We were quite a church-going family. We found a church where we settled, and the community from the church was quite helpful. Cost of living was very expensive. Every time I held the pound, I turned into Kenya shillings, and I thought, this is too much. And coped with it. And then it was quite expensive. In terms of settling within the community, we found this local church had local members who also came from Kenya, and they lived in the local area. So that helped, because I remember the first day we arrived in the house, they were there to receive us, and they showed us where the shops were. Some of our friends also, in the next week, took us to the bank. We opened bank accounts, and they were quite helpful with knowledge about how to go about childcare. In terms of my work as a nurse, settling was quite difficult in the sense that it was not as I expected. I thought, because I was trained in Kenya, it was a Commonwealth country, I spoke in English, and I did everything British system. I thought when I came as a nurse, like the nurses used to come and just, they just got an adaptation, 3 months adaptation, then you get absorbed into the system. I thought that was the same way. By the time I was coming, that had all changed. We had to do an English exam. We had to wait for verification of papers of my training from Kenya. And then that is when we could do the adaptation. You had to pass an English exam. That English was very, very highly set. The pass mark was very high. It is still high, but it's been adjusted lately. But passing that English was a big problem for most of my colleagues. So initially I started working as a healthcare assistant. As I did my English, waited for my adaptation. By the time I was settling as a nurse, it was around end of 2013. That's when I got my registration. And that's when my nursing began. As soon as I got my registration, I learned about the RCN. I remember going to my first RCN Congress, and I knew I had the answers to everything I would want in nursing, and I had the voice that I was craving so badly. I paid for myself, I sponsored myself, but that was my turning point. I never looked back, and from my registration point to my being a member of the RCN, I knew I could speak. I had a voice to stop those who are doing the wrong things, even if I'm not able to stop them, to tell them, and to challenge practices. Being a member of the Royal College of Nursing, first of all, gave me training to be a representative. So I joined and then I registered myself, registered my interest to want to become a representative. And then they offered me training. And with the number of congresses and conferences I was attending, there was a lot of information that, could build one up as a nurse. It gave me ideas of how we could get training and even get sponsorship for further training, and there was a lot of resources about knowing what to do when you are in need, whether you are in need of help in terms of support at work, in terms of training, whether you have a problem at work and you need to be supported. The Royal College of Nursing and all those resources. So I'm one person who has benefited from the Royal College of Nursing, not just from the aspect of getting my voice back, but the challenges that I've been through. I've had to call Royal College of Nursing for immigration issues, for legal issues, and for support financially. They have supported me. And generally, even the social aspect where you just meet up during congresses and talk about different areas of practice of nursing and experiences that people go through and how you build each other, it's all there. The nurses who come to this country have no recourse to public funds. The nurses who come to this country have no subsidized childcare. If they have to get childcare, it has to be private. And because of that, they also don't have access to subsidized housing where you can get from the council. It means their housing must be private, purely private. Private housing is very expensive. At that time, nurses had to pay the immigration self-surcharge fee, they had to pay the visa fees. And the manner in which they had put it was that you could not go ahead with your visa application before you apply, before you get your reference for payment for the immigration self-surcharge fee, which was very expensive. And if you had family like me, 6 of us, it was quite expensive because you had to pay for the 6 of you before you can apply for your visa. So there was a constant threat of your visa, you running out of status, you running out of visa, because the government had really played their game well on that. So when we brought up this motion and pushed it forward and campaigned, and the Royal College of Nursing was brilliant. There was the media involved, but with their support, they made sure everything went smoothly. The victory that came from the scrapping of the immigration health surcharge fee is a victory which has been celebrated by all healthcare professionals who are coming from abroad. It was not a victory for RCN alone, or not even for the RCN nursing members, but for everybody in health and social care. The help is there, the support is there, the resources are there, and for anybody who is struggling in any way, who is having stress at work, who is having financial difficulties, legal issues, immigration issues, the Royal College of Nursing is like a home to the nurses who are its members, to the healthcare system. It's like a home with parents where you run to when you are most stressed. And even if you don't get your help 100%, you will live with something that makes you feel better. When I picked one of these flyers and I saw that there were different kind of reps, you can be a steward, a learning rep, or a safety rep. I thought being a steward would be the thing for me, because I looked at the way nurses were voiceless and I thought, I want to become a voice for nurses who are voiceless. I want to be able to support them when they're at their lowest. I want to be able to sit in those disciplinary committees or in those committees that call them, when they've had issues. I always wanted to just check that the work areas people are treated fairly, that the managers are not being too much on the nurses who are just learning the country, that they're given a fair chance to know what they're doing and they're supported effectively to be able to be effective nurses, because it's not the knowledge they lack, but it's the system they need to understand. And with good support, less bullying, they just need that nurturing environment to get themselves to pick themselves up. So that is the reason that I really wanted to be a rep. I wish I'd known about the family life. It would have made me decide whether to carry my young children with me at once or to let them study back at home for a little while before coming, because that was one area that we really struggled in. And then the finances. I wish I knew the actual cost of living in the UK. And another thing that I would have wished happened differently was how nurses, international nurses, are treated, that they are not considered with the experiences they come with. That when you come, you start like you're a freshly trained person and you have to completely forget about your experience and your skills, and they don't regard any of that. That was quite painful. I also felt that the UK could have been more considerate to nurses who trained in English, that they didn't have to be subjected to English again, because it's the same English. I mean, accents are different, and even if you look at the 4 UK countries, they don't have the same accent. So me speaking the same English with my accent at home should not disqualify my English. I would want them to consider all those things so that when they come, they're not surprised that how am I going to look at childcare? The cost of life is so expensive. Then it will make them decide if they're coming together as a family, if they have the means, well and good. But it's something that they really need to consider, because housing is expensive, childcare is expensive, we don't have communities here who know us, and you have to get on with it. The work that has been done by RCN about English and the changes that are coming on, I think are really going to be helpful to even the nurses who gave up their nursing in this country and settled that healthcare system, because I work with a lot of them. And now their faces are beaming with joy because they are finally realizing their hope of becoming nurses again. That's another thing that I would want nurses to know, and everyone to know, that nurses are really underpaid in this country. We don't have to live like this, even though we are very considerate and we are very caring, and it's our humanity that makes us carry on as nurses. We are still human beings. We need to eat. We have families. We need to put food on the table. We need to dress, clothe our families. We have children. We have family members. We need to be paid properly. And the kind of work we do, not everybody can do. It's a very special kind of work that it's the heart and soul of healthcare. And which country can do without healthcare? Nurses are the heart and souls of healthcare in the whole world. They need to treat us with some dignity, give us some respect, and pay us our dues. I need people to know that, or this country, the government, to know that.